Right now, there's a real public conversation about for good in business, and part of that conversation is about impact investment. But there's another conversation which is about ESG, and that's not always so good. And we're seeing a theme emerging which is questioning the authenticity of what some organisations are doing under their ESG agendas. Now seemed like a really good time to dig into the difference between ESG and impact investment. And what we found was that there was confusion. And if we're really going to unlock the potential of the impact investment market in the UK, we need a much more precise conversation about the difference between those two initiatives, and we need to build consensus around that. So this is a report about investors who are interested in unlocking environmental and social value from their investments, as well as, not instead of, financial value. So what we felt was that we needed to commission a report which looked at how we can accelerate the market that does that, the impact investment market. And ultimately that became a report about market innovation.
Well, the aim of the research was to really understand what does best practice now look like in impact investment and how it could best be supported in the future. And to get in under the bonnet of that question, we interviewed 36 people, hour-long interviews, and all of those people are at the sharp end of impact investment. So that's impact investors themselves, investee companies, industry networks and bodies, and independent experts, if you like, attached to academia or elsewhere. And they were very rich and very powerful interviews, and it really helped us understand those questions.
And there's something really exciting about the way the network engaged with this report, because we reached out to a broad group of people who were really excited about being in this conversation, and that for me means that that network and that group is active. It's a very positive step for the future.
In terms of the presentation of the report, we tried to make it incredibly accessible and light, but that sits on top of a huge amount of research effort that went into producing it, not just in the 36 expert interviews, but we obviously trawled all of the current leading edge research across some academic institutions and across the business world, and many of the experts that we interviewed shared with us unpublished papers and their thinking about what was happening next and what was important. So I hope we've got that balance right between something that a general reader can access really quickly, but people that are expert in this area will see that it's very much rooted in that broader understanding of leading edge practice and leading edge research.
So what stood out to me was firstly the degree of consensus amongst what was actually quite a broad audience that we spoke to, and we found that consensus quite encouraging. The second thing was a sense of opportunity. We can see that there's an opportunity for UK PLC to really benefit from being known globally as a centre for impact investment. And dare I say it, that's quite an interesting pillar to a future industrial strategy. And the final thing was really the need for market innovation and the thought that the UK could be right at the heart of that sector innovation.
I think the clearest standout from the interviews was the emphasis all these experts placed on the need to better distinguish ESG from impact investment. They saw making that distinction more clearly as not just vital to the future success of impact investment, but actually equally as important for the support and improvement of ESG practices.
Another theme is the pressing need for innovation in the market. And we came away from our research feeling that the priority now was how can we encourage that innovation. And for me, that's about value. How do we measure value in impact investment companies, and how do we value and create valuations of impact investment companies? And that's really interesting for founder teams, because what we saw was that there were a group of founders who were focused on telling a story about how they can use the funds that they've raised to create impact, and there's another group of founders who are explaining how being an impact-driven company can create greater value. And that's a really significant difference in the market.
I think an area that does need further investigation after this report are some of the suggestions the experts made for what you could call market innovation in impact investment. So some called for perhaps an index of impact investors so that we could start to have more transparency about their relative performance. I think that's a really interesting idea. And more broadly, the notion of marketisation in terms of what could we learn from, say, the carbon markets, in terms of, if you like, putting a price on negative externalities. And if we think about areas where there are social outcomes, could we develop similar types of market mechanisms to encourage and incentivise more impact investment and more activity in producing outcomes that could be transformative in those areas?
One of the key outputs from the report was to try and draw a distinction between ESG and impact. So whereas ESG is grounded in reporting and compliance, our hypothesis is that impact is grounded in intentionality. What are people trying to achieve through the investments that they're making?
I think the thing that actually most excited me about the report is the potential of impact investment itself. So it was really exciting to engage with all of these experts and then basically say, look, if we can accelerate the rate of innovation and impact investment, grow how much there is, we're going to accelerate the rate of innovation and growth in the UK economy. But also their incredible excitement that if we're going to address these huge environmental and social challenges we face, impact investment has got to play a huge role in that. So this sense that if we get this right, if we can support impact investment more, that we're going to get these huge economic, environmental and social dividends, that's incredibly exciting. And it was an incredibly exciting part of being involved in this work, and I hope that it can prompt an ongoing conversation about how we can really realise that potential.
Taylor Vinters is in a really unique position because we advise on hundreds of venture investment deals every year, and that gives us an opportunity to look across the market as a whole, and we can see what the trends are. And when we do that, and when we listen to the people that we're supporting, and when we watch them scan the horizon for the next big strategic themes, we can see that impact is going to be a really dominant thread in entrepreneurialism in the future. And that's important to us because right at the core of our own strategy is this belief that innovation can help solve some of the world's toughest challenges.